Welcome to the monthly market report. My name is David Childers, and for the next 20 minutes or so, Kate Rezebeck and I are going to walk through the latest information in the residential housing market across the country. Every month we come to you with a monthly market report to give you the insights and the information you need to be the most educated advisor on this information. So our hope is that you'll use this information to educate clients, get the message out there about what's truly happening in real estate across the country. So I'm going to share my screen as we get started here, and a familiar look at the showing time graphic here. Going all the way back to January, we've used showing time as a leading indicator in real estate of what is happening relative to activity. And if you look at this going all the way back to January, you see the dip down during the lockdown of the pandemic and coming back up, cramming a bunch of business into the first part of this year and seeing a lot of action. And now we're starting to level off. And if you remember, as I've used this showing time graphic, I've said, well, we're ahead of where we were this time last year. And you see this yellow line here, we're slightly below where we were this time last year in September, being the most recent data. Why is this important? Because certainly a lot of people are wondering, is the market starting to slow down? Is the market leveling off or, starting to level out? And we want to look at this and say, okay, yeah, that is happening relative to 2020, but I always want to bring you perspective. And our team pulled the showing time data going all the way back to 2017. And what do you see there? 2017, 2018, 2019, probably the most normal markets we can look at. Pandemic in 2020, certainly not a normal market. And we've kind of come off where we were this time last year, but well ahead of where we were years coming into 2020. Why is this important? Because, we're starting to see the market level off a little bit there, or normalize, maybe is a word that's a better word, but well ahead of where we were coming into the pandemic. Very, very important. It's important because, maybe we think, gosh, things are slowing down. Maybe we think and have talked to people in our office about, what's happening out in the market. No doubt every market across the country could use more inventory. Every market across the country has more buyers. And we want to see more and more inventory come into the market. But I want to give you a perspective from Bill McBride from the Calculated Risk blog. He said this: sales non-seasonally adjusted in September were 548,000. That was 2.7% below sales in September of 2020, which was 563,000. But excluding last September, which was obviously distorted by the delayed selling season, sales non-seasonally adjusted were the strongest since 2005. Let me ask you a question here. Do you hear anybody in our business talking about that? Talking about sales are very, very good. Maybe a few, but certainly not a lot. And you're certainly not hearing that in the media, I would argue. And it's our job to be the educator to the clients that we serve. We always say on the monthly market report that headlines do more to terrify than they do to clarify what's going on. The clickbait that's out there oftentimes about real estate in our market misleads people. Maybe the article is factual, maybe the information is factual, but it's got a clickbait type of headline that people don't read the article and they make an assumption off what they saw, and then they maybe don't continue with their plans to buy or sell real estate. And they've been misinformed. I want to give you a couple of articles that are out there right now. Foreclosures are shooting up. Is this a repeat of the early 2000s housing crisis? That is a headline that I think we can expect to see more of. I talked about this. Foreclosure starts being up 49% last month, according to Adam data. Factually correct, but nowhere near where we were in 2019. The more normal market. We should expect foreclosures to be up as the moratoriums have been lifted. Expect to see for the second month in a row, foreclosures are up the third month in a row, but nowhere near the volume what we saw pre-pandemic. But certainly as we go into next year, there will be those that are affected by the pandemic, moratoriums being lifted, and we will see more foreclosures. But this sort of headline, clickbait headline, comes from Realtor.com, friendly fire in our business that we need to be aware of. And when consumers see headlines like this, they get scared, they get concerned, they don't move forward. CNBC came out and said this: mortgage originations will drop 33% in 22 is interest rates rise according to the industry forecast. What they don't do is take the time to read into the article, and I'll bring that up real quick. If you go into the article, what they actually say is refinance originations will drop 62% in 2020 to $860 billion to 2022. And that makes sense. In a rising interest rate environment, we'll see less refinances. However, they go on to say mortgage originations for the purpose of buying a home are forecasted to rise 9% to a record $1.73 trillion next year. So the headline doesn't do really anything to inform the buyer or even lead them down the right path. You have to go into the article to begin to do that. And over, we see folks seeing those articles and thinking, I don't know if now is a good time to buy. I don't know if now is a good time to move forward with my real estate plans. And they don't do it. Our job, again, is be the educator, bring the truth to the market, and using everything that we do on the monthly market report to make a video and get the information, write something, use a blog, and bring the local data, local market information with all the macro information we're sharing with you. I do want to bring another report in here that I think, really emphasizes this point. This is University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment. Do you think it's a good time to buy a home? Well, if you look back at 2020, February of 2020, 70% of people saying, yes, I think it's a good time to buy a home. Well, you move forward to September 2020, a little bit less, 65%. Well, today, September of 2021, about 1 out of 3 people think it's a good time to buy a home. One of those reasons that people have been misinformed about what's happening in real estate. No doubt there's buyers that are frustrated right now. There are buyers that are looking at prices going, it's getting a little bit too hot. But if you follow the monthly market report and what Kate's going to talk about in just a moment and projections for next year, you're going to see that we're going to still see appreciation going into next year. And we need to get that message out there because some of these headlines are winning out in the market. So I'm going to pause here and have Kate come in and talk about what's coming in the coming year in real estate.
Thank you so much, David. I think the biggest question that people are asking today is, what's ahead for the 2022 housing market forecast? And what I'm going to bring to you today is the data, the expert quotes, the insights on what's really happening in the market. Because as we heard earlier, there's a lot of confusion. There are headlines that terrify, not clarify, and people are seeing rising prices, rising rates, bubble bursting, and all of the concerns around a market crash. And what we want to share is the data that shows exactly what's happening and helps you really separate out the noise, because it's the noise and the confusion that is going to put people on the sidelines and have them wait and say, how long can this keep going? I just don't see the end. And so that's what we're going to share today with the 2022 forecast. And I think it really starts with the conversation on mortgage rates. So let's dive right in and look at this quote from Doug Duncan at Fannie Mae. And it says, right now, we forecast mortgage rates to average 3.3% in 2022, which, though slightly higher than 2020 and 2021, by historical standards remains extremely low and supportive of mortgage demand and affordability. So what does that mean? Well, just like most of the other experts are projecting, we're seeing a projection for increasing mortgage rates. We've seen that even over the past few weeks as mortgage rates have on average ticked up above 3%. So as mortgage rates rise, it will cost more to purchase a home. And that's exactly what we've been talking about with affordability. Mortgage rates, prices, and wages are the 3 levers for affordability. So as mortgage rates are projected to rise, it will cost more. But the great context here that I love about this quote is the piece about the historical standards. And if mortgage rates are ticking up a little bit, it will cost more, but they will remain historically low based on projections, and that will support affordability. So that's great news for buyers, but what we need to help buyers understand is buying before mortgage rates rise even higher. So let's take a look at what the mortgage rate data looks like. This is data from Freddie Mac, and it's average mortgage rates going all the way back to 2018. What you can see here is that the mortgage rates were roughly, just under 5% in 2018, and they've dropped pretty significantly since then. We hit that kind of all-time low at the very end of last year, early this year, and they've started to tick up again. And so what people want to know is, where are they headed? And similarly, as we saw in the quote before, you can see Freddie Mac is saying mortgage rates are projected to rise as well, roughly 3.6% by this time next year. And as we average out all the projections that we're looking at from the major players, we see roughly 3.5% mortgage rates next year, by this time next year. So as mortgage rates get higher, it becomes more expensive to purchase a home. And that's what we want to help homeowners understand. If they're thinking of waiting a year, 2 years, maybe even 3, if they're ready to buy now, buying before mortgage rates rise is mission critical to that affordability lens. Now, what we also know is that mortgage rates aren't the only thing on the rise for next year. Home prices are forecast to appreciate as well. So what you're looking at here is the home price forecast for 2022. And as we look at the 6 or so major players that we follow, industry experts, they're averaging out to about 5.1% appreciation next year. Now, what does that mean? Well, we've seen and we've talked about over the past year, home prices have appreciated at a record-breaking level, 18, 19, almost 20% appreciation. So next year, the forecast is showing continued appreciation, but at a slower or more moderate rate. And you've heard us use that word deceleration. And that's really important to be able to communicate to our clients, is that home prices are expected to continue rising, but at that decelerated rate, which means slower or more moderate. So definitely not projecting a decline in prices, but a slower rate of appreciation. So what does that mean? That means that it is going to get more expensive to purchase a home, and we want buyers to be able to purchase before home prices rise. But why are they projected to continue appreciating? That's because inventory is still a big challenge. It's still a major question. And as we look at, the supply and demand conversation that we have over and over again, supply is low, demand is high. That's going to naturally make prices rise. And so what we see is that the inventory situation won't be solved overnight. We'll still have an inventory challenge next year, but likely softening because builders are coming back to the market, building more homes. We anticipate more sellers to feel less pressure coming out of the pandemic and maybe interested in selling their homes. So going back onto the market if they've held off, there's a variety of factors that as more homes to come to the market, home price appreciation will ease a bit, but continue to rise because the inventory situation certainly hasn't been fixed overnight. Now, what does this mean for buyers? Of course, buy before prices and mortgage rates rise to maintain that affordability. But what does it mean for sellers? It means that home equity will continue rising, and that's a huge factor. We've talked about record-breaking equity over the past year as well, and equity will continue rising as home prices rise. So what we want to make sure that homeowners know is if they're thinking of making that move 2-3 years down the road, maybe even sometime next year, doing that before prices rise will help them leverage that equity, make that move up or that downsize, whatever it is they're looking for, well, they can still lock in that low rate and take advantage of the current home price appreciation. So equity can really drive that for homeowners. So as we think about mortgage rates rising, prices rising, what does that mean for home sales next year? Well, home sales are forecast to increase this year and perform well again in 2022. So what you're looking at here is the home sale forecast from 4 major entities that we follow: Fannie, Freddie, NAR, and MBA. And in 2021, it looks like roughly 6.7 to 6.9 million home sales. So very strong year finishing out this year. And then next year, potentially even exceeding that. And the reason this is so powerful is if you look at last year, we sold 6.5 million homes in 2020. And that was record breaking. So projected to exceed what we did in 2020, again this year, next year. This is fantastic news. And this means that, a strong spring, we anticipate that, the forecast is really going to be strong going forward. So what we need to do is help homeowners realize selling now, help buyers understand buying before mortgage rates and prices rise, all of those different things as we go into the spring. Now, we couldn't say it better ourselves, but the reality of it is 2022 should be another strong year for the housing market. This is a quote from the Mortgage Bankers Association, and it's a great setup for what's ahead based on what the data is saying, what the experts are saying. 2022 really has the potential to be a great year. And, as a trusted advisor in your market, take these slides, make a video, share this information, and help your clients understand the power of taking advantage of what's available today, buying before prices and rates rise, and really making that move up, that first home, that downsize, whatever it may be, before the end of the year. Dave, I'm going to send it back to you.
Well, thank you, Kate, for giving us that information as we look into next year. I've got this slide up here that really is representing a home, and you can see a little desk there. And maybe many of us over the last year at some time or another have worked from our home. Certainly during the lockdown, had to work from home in different states, different regulations. That was lifted at different times. But no doubt, people across the country have had a new meaning and a new take on home during the pandemic. And many have had to figure out how to work, how to educate their kids, how to do what they need to do from home. I think as we go into next year, just like Kate talked about, the prices rising, interest rates rising, it's going to cost more. We need to start talking about the non-financial benefits of home ownership. And I want to talk about that for just a couple of minutes and give you the latest information of what's happening in that area, because I think we're seeing a different trend than what we saw previously in this country. And I do want to highlight that for you, but I want to start here. Don Layton from Harvard University says, home ownership is regarded as causing an improvement in the quality of life of a typical family. It is the most common method for such a family to build wealth. That can be used for retirement, other needs, including helping the next generation. Goes on to say such wealth creation, therefore, provides a major social as well as economic benefits. We've been talking a lot over the last year, the economic benefits with rising prices, equity rising across the country, and you're well prepared for that. But let's start to talk about the non-financial benefits and what that's looked like coming out of the last year and a half across the country. Unison just did a report on the state of the American homeowner, 2021 State of the American Homeowner, said this: 64% of American homeowners say living through a pandemic has made their home more important than ever to them. No doubt, all of us could probably say on some level that has been true for me as well. I've had to work at home. I've had to educate my kids at home. I've had to eat at home. I've had to work out at home. I've had to entertain myself at home. Just the list goes on. It's become more important. 83% of homeowners say their home has kept them safe during the pandemic. No doubt, home has taken on a new meaning for folks. 91% of homeowners say they feel secure or stable or successful owning a home. We can say confidently that home ownership and the non-financial benefits of home ownership are growing. And here's why. Think back to 2010. Think about that time in our country. Many people saying, I don't know if the American dream is still owning a home. We saw a lot of people lose value in their homes in the recession, the Great Recession, the housing crisis. And I'm not sure that's what folks are going to do. Certainly young people that saw their parents go through that, they may not want to own a home. And I think we can say today, things are happening differently coming out of this crisis of the pandemic. No doubt, coming out of the pandemic, and I'm not suggesting we're fully out of it by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a lot in the rearview mirror. Home has become much, much more important. I think this question will come up as we go into the next couple of months and into the holidays. We're going to encounter people that say, when's the market going to crash? My response to this would be, do you think home is becoming more important or less important to people? You think more people want to buy a home today or less want to buy a home? And we have the answers to those questions. If I go on to this, inside of that report, they say last year, staying home became a necessity. And that caused many homeowners to have a renewed gratitude for the roof over their head. And there is no doubt through the pandemic that home and the gratitude for a place, the gratitude for the safety became something that certainly in my lifetime we've never seen before. It became more important and more, much more important to people across the country. Matter of fact, inside of that study, homeowners that feel emotionally attached to their home, pre-pandemic, that was about 58%. Now it's 70%. A rise in the number of people that say, you know what, I feel more attached to my home after going through the pandemic. And that makes sense. It makes sense for all of us that have been through all the things that we know about the last year and a half. And here's the bottom line. Mark Fleming from First American says, buying a home is not just a financial decision, it's also a lifestyle decision. So my hope is that, all the things that you're talking about, that you include the non-financial benefits of home ownership in what you're talking about as we wrap up the year, go into next year, and many people thinking, home has become more important to me and my needs have changed. And, as we get through the pandemic and issues there, doing something, leveraging that equity, going out there and saying, there's a different decision we need to make with home. As I wrap up today, I want to bring up a tweet from Jimmy Mackin, the CEO of Curator. He tweeted this advice: want to get more listings in 2022? Make more investments in your future. We're here in November, wrapping up the end of the year, and considering the investments you're making, he said this, number 4, invest in your agents and your admin staff. Invest in those around you. No doubt, very, very important as we wrap up the end of the year. How are you investing in those around you? Said invest in video content, advertising, and social. What we're talking about right here, make a video using this. Use content that we offer relative to the macro U.S. market. Bring in your local data information, but invest in that area of your business. Invest in creating a world-class experience. I know there's so many people watching that are investing in the experience the consumers, the buyers and sellers have with them. No doubt that's happening. And number 1, he said this: invest time in becoming a market expert. Everything we're talking about here, starting out from where's the market out to what's coming next year, to how do we handle those questions coming up with those that we may come in contact with during the holiday season. Be the market expert. One of the things that we offer to you to be the market expert are our winter buyer and seller guides. Those are coming up December 4th. So shortly, just a few weeks, they'll be coming up. And those are great tools to use at open houses, use in other things that you're giving to those thinking about buying, those thinking about selling, to educate themselves, to really position you as the market expert, as the purveyor of that content. I hope you'll use those and get those out in the market. As always, I'm grateful for the time you invest in the monthly market report. We will see you here back next month as we go through the latest housing market insights. See you.